Hello there, YouTube. This is Sibbles and Bits here with the June patch notes. Unfortunately, we didn't get patch notes early this time. We got them like pretty much 2 hours before the update launched. I was at work. I've seen a lot of people post individual things over the Discord, but otherwise, for the most part, this is a blind read through. And I'll just be here to hopefully be able to explain a lot of things, hopefully be able to give some insight into exactly what I feel these things are going to have an impact on the meta. Like I said, a couple of things have been spoiled for me, so I'll be able to elaborate on that. Otherwise, we are going to assume that everything that's here is working as written, which is very dangerous for Back for Blood patch notes, as we've no doubt seen in the past. And before I get into it, also want to, as I usually do with these videos, iterate who am I? I'm honestly probably nobody, but I'm a primarily Nightmare pub doc main. I haven't been able to play a lot of No Hope since the update, and admittedly, I haven't been able to play a lot since the last update, which those of you who follow the channel probably realized because there's been little to no videos in like the past month. But I've still been playing the game, definitely still been labbing the game. I've just been on the Discord posting everything there instead of on YouTube because making a YouTube video, quite a lot of work goes into that, especially because I'm very particular about making sure that everything is precise or at least accurate and not just like posting a video that there's a bug or something that's going on. Otherwise, not to sound like I have a big head or anything, I'm currently running one of maybe the only big labbing discords for Back for Blood. We're linked on the official Back for Blood Discord. We are Back for Stats is the name of it. Used to be one of the head labbers of the Statty.net Discord. Statty retired, so we migrated over to a new server. I'm technically running it, but it's pretty much just, Lord of the Flies over there. I'm just a guy. But I primarily play Nightmare pubs. I don't really have an organized team that I play a lot with. We do play occasionally with my friends, but we don't play regularly enough for me to say that I have a Nightmare crew. Used to play with Cheeky. They're, I believe, retired, or at least they're not play. They weren't playing the last patch, and pretty much just been labbing and posting all my findings up on the Discord. However, the Discord has a lot of other people that also lab the game, obviously, but a lot of people who are much better at the game than I am that grab all that information that we're digging out of the game, give their insight on that. So I do have some insight into how the game plays, but mostly I know more about how the game works, if that makes any sense. Anyways, we're going to start going into this. New features, full deck draw. Just like in No Hope, No Hope full 15 cards was very well received, and so they've decided to roll it over into all sections of the game. They say that in the future they are considering adding multiple deck styles like ordered draw like we had previously and full random decks, and that all difficulties have been reworked to account for the fact that we now have our full power at the start, and then we more or less likely slowly ramp up in power. I personally do not like this change. I know that I'm in the very small majority of people who liked things like having to worry about deck ordering, reading your run where you're at, playing cards specifically to mitigate problems that RNG has given you. I feel like with 15 cards, a lot more builds are going to be available because stuff like melee dock isn't going to be suffer at the beginning of the game because you'll just have your full kit. And even things that was maybe one or two pieces that you didn't quite know which one to take first, but you can't really start the match out with it, so then it was kind of a balancing act of Sadist Bodyguard is a good example. You don't really want to take Bodyguard unless you have Sadist, but you don't know if your team is taking damage enough to take Sadist, so then you just have two cards in your deck that's really doing nothing. And generally speaking, you would put those flex cards at the bottom of your deck, and then if you didn't really need them, you just, whatever, I'll take HP or Stamina, something like that. But now you're going to have those, basically those 3 or maybe even 5 flex cards that you would never really maybe take. They're just going to be active all the time. And so you're going to be able to start your build off right off the get-go. It's honestly, I like the aspect of being able to just start with your build because, as I said, that's going to enable a lot more like weird builds as a enemy of the meta. Obviously, I enjoy weird builds, and so those off-meta builds that may not necessarily, it'll just be easier to start with those. But my problem with it is that when you start with 15 cards, your run is pretty much decided. You're losing, let me say, run identity. Because before, admittedly, the only time that anybody ever, well, no one discusses run identity because most people here who play this game aren't roguelike players. But run identity is basically the story of the run, or how the run played out differently from your other runs. And with 15 cards, you're going to very much lose a lot of that. Yes, you get the increased lock boxes in the level, and so that's going to sort of guide your deck in a particular way, kind of. They did a little bit of rebalancing on the cards to make them interesting enough to actually give some flavor. But for the most part, you're going to start at one point, and depending on how they scale the enemies, you're expected to be at a specific point by a certain point in the campaign. And so, what happens if you luck out and get the same lockbox multiple times? Because it can happen. You can get the same lockbox. You can get offered, let's say, group therapy 3 times on one stage in the same room. I've had someone report that. So now your opportunity for scaling has been removed regardless of whether or not you were going to buy the card or not, because you've just lost 2 of those. And so you're banking on this intel to like drive your build in the right direction, and you're sort of going to run into the same problem now where run identity only really occurs in extremes. The only time that you heard people discuss run identity, again, it's like a concept, feels good, feels bads, right? Is, oh, well, we got to T5 and we still only had 1 slot of white wire. That's an idea of run identity. Your run, your run's story pretty much was that you got to T5 with white wire. It can happen, happens quite a lot. It's going to happen a lot less with the new burn cards, but run identity is going to get killed by that kind of stuff too. And it's pretty much just becoming, you set up your build and then you just roll it. And then hopefully you scale up enough to where you can take wherever the pressure point of the act is going to be, probably map 8 or 9. But depending on what they do with the tunnels, or Tunnels of Terror, the hives, depending on what they do there, they, even if you don't count the fact that you get to draw a card every single time you go into them, because that's not the case anymore, we're going to be seeing more intel, so you are still ramping in tunnels, and you're getting better loot, better ways to scale in tunnels. And so I feel like over time, everyone's going to burn out because it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over again. Some people can do that. I did that for like 10,000 hours on Left 4 Dead. Wasn't really looking forward to doing it in Back 4 Blood. We're going to give it a go, though. See where it takes us. It's not like I'm going to go ahead and like quit the game all of a sudden just because they made one change like this. But it'll be interesting to see where it turns out. And we just spent 10 minutes on the first patch note. This might take a while. Player kicking. So the main reason why they've been against adding a player kick feature is because it honestly enables more toxicity than it solves, in my opinion. All these people who are talking about running into lobbies of people just throwing the run, legitimately, I've only ran into 3 of those. People who use down in front and like whole, you can't kill them, so then they'll just uncrouch, shoot you, crouch again. They pretty much have peeker's advantage from a shooter if you understand how that works. So then they just kill everybody and then they're happy because they finished the run. This isn't going to necessarily solve that unless those people are also shooting you, but they can still just crouch somewhere, just sort of like duck walk around, and it's not going to stop them. However, if someone's blatantly going out of their way and just gunning down the whole team, it will recognize that, prompt it up, be like, hey, this person's doing a lot of friendly fire. Do you want to kick them? And Turtle Rock has felt like this is a acceptable way of implementing kick vote, because otherwise people can use it for all other sorts of reasons. I sort of agree with this, except it depends on exactly what the parameters are for dealing too much friendly fire damage or how long when a cleaner is idle. Because if someone idles out in the middle of a map, it could potentially end it if it's only going to pop up after, like, say, 1 to 2 minutes. I guess at least it's in the game, and then they can tweak it later to make it more appropriate. I don't know exactly how much this is going to matter. New banner sprays, emblems, always good. 12 new burn cards. Oh no, anyways. New warp chest corruption cards. This is very interesting. On the Discord, we found that there was sort of like graveyard data of a whole bunch of other corruptions, or warp chest curses is what they're called in there. And I'm guessing that this is basically them just getting the rest of that online. It probably didn't make the cut for production. But the fact that deep wounds can be blocked by THP, we'll see if they fix that, sort of made tunnels, they were free basically, so long as your team had the skill to actually like get through the tunnel. Warp chest gave you such a huge benefit that you never really had to care about. New cleaner skins, always good. Legendary accessories. A detailed breakdown of supply points, copper, and skull totems now present on the post round screen. Okay. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. More UI is always good. Campaign updates. Weapon drops have been rebalanced to better scale with the full deck draw feature. So my guess is that this means that your higher rarity weapons are being pushed back because we have more power at the start of the game. We're still obviously going to have to take a look at that. Tunnels still have a higher threat level than the map that you were previously in. So is this also taking that into account and making it so that tunnels, again, aren't just an easy ramp, go into there at as soon as you get one, you're all of a sudden like ahead of the curve, and then you just start steamrolling the act. If this goes into tunnels as well, that might actually be very interesting. And also, like, what is weapon drops? Like, obviously, weapons isn't weapons, but weapons also spawn with attachments. Generally speaking, you have melee weapons. And so it'll be interesting to see if something happens with those too. One thing to note is that if we start with 15 cards, you can't buy scavengers out of lockboxes. If green weapons are starting later, and weapon scav doesn't affect boxes, or therefore warp chests, you might see a heavy hit on people actually using weapon scavenger, unless you're looking for a specific weapon, right? If you absolutely need an LMG, any LMG, you might still use it. Or everyone's going to tell me just use a burn card 5-head. I don't use burn cards. I think that the game should be playable without them. If you're a person who just says use a burn card 5-head, then you really don't care anyways, and you're probably not using weapon scavenger. But a lot of people swore to it, and tunnels already, since they didn't affect warp chests, pretty much killed weapon scavenger, except for like a few people who claim that it affects rarity, which it technically does, but it's not affecting rarity the way that they say it does. I don't know. They might have to do something about weapon scav, make it so that it actually does make a better loot drop. A toolkit can now be used to unlock a free heal from a first aid cabinet. Now, I've had somebody just confirm recently on the Discord. Let me look this up. Okay, so what it does is when you use a toolkit on an FAC, which is, for those of you who, some people call them charge station, the healing cabinets, the stuff that you get a life, 60 health, and 30 trauma from. You use a toolkit on there, and it will give it a charge of free life. Now, that has to be used in order for you to do it again, but Basically, my guess is that this is there for the purpose of once you got late into the game, you get like blue or purple quick slots. Your toolkits don't really do anything and they don't really disappear. So you open the prepper stash and then somebody just has a toolkit and it's kind of a waste of a quick slot unless you run into a locked door, right? Now you can effectively turn that into a better medkit, and that's honestly very good. Nobody's been able to confirm a reuse on it yet, but if you can reuse your toolkits on these FACs, that just put a lot of value in like toolkits. Like quick slot was already pretty good for healing because of the defibrillators, but if you can turn a toolkit into it's not real it's pretty much a medical professional green med kit, that's pretty good, especially if you have a quick scavenger on your team and you just happen to find an extra toolkit. You can just use that for trauma heal. Pretty good. I had a build that I was working on called the Hang Recycler, which was pretty much just focused on reusing bandages in order to get like a lot of heal procs off. But now we can theoretically also throw toolkits on there. Honestly, not bad at all. It'll be interesting to see how this changes the value of Stealthy Passage. It probably won't, because Stealthy Passage is already like ridiculously good. It'll give you enough copper to use the first aid cabinet anyways. Improvements have been made to movement smoothing when an item or weapon is dropped. I don't understand that, but I'm sure that's somebody who actually deals with movement. I'm not really the movement guy, and I'm not really the damage guy. I'm kind of the medical guy. So whenever something says movement, I have no idea what the frick is going on. And here's an example. Suppose I should correct myself. When I say that I'm not the damage guy, I mean like outward damage, right? Like damage formula, stuff like that, how much weapons are breakpoints, stuff like that. I only know as much as I need to know. But here, remove damage rounding up to 1.0, so damage from smaller sources can properly be reduced, such as acid pools. Damage didn't round up to 1.0. It rounded to at least 2 decimals, and I've been able to track it to do such. A lot of the damage values that's in, you may have seen the stat calculator, which is also hosted on the Back for Stats Discord. Swings mentioned it in a lot of his videos. Helped Swing lab no hope damage values. Yeah, there's like maybe it's 1 decimal, and I just got lucky with 2. I'm pretty sure it goes to 3, but it's at least 2. This just that's not. I'm sorry, but that's not right. I'm sorry. Like even on Swing's test, if you guys have seen that, he took 91.8 damage from a no hope monstrous tall boy, because he took 91 damage the first hit, and then 92 the next. So we know that this is at least 1 decimal. I don't know. We'll figure out what the heck. Hopefully that didn't break anything. This is like when they said that they nerfed the retro melee, and then they actually buffed it by like 2 times. Silent Snitcher's accomplishment reduced. Okay, this is kind of nice because of the fact that you had to kill 1,000 Snitchers, not your team. Minor adjustments made to some collision areas in Ridden Hives to prevent items from spawning underground or in inaccessible locations. Always good. Devil's Crossing, a plant C4 icon has been added to distinguish bomb pickup locations from bomb plant locations. That's like new player UI, that's always good. Finding supply crate now prompts an active objective complete sound to play. That's good for pubs because nobody says anything, and sometimes you don't hear them say it. Picking up batteries, same thing. Cleaner updates. Hang's item drop rate has been adjusted based on damage taken. It's very weird that they nerfed him. Like, I'm sure that this is a scaling value, right? Like, it's not, okay, 5 damage, you take anywhere from 5 to 50 is a 10%. It's probably a gradient. These are just the breakpoints that they, like, hard-coded in. So 5 damage, you get 10% chance. How Hang's ability used to work is anytime you took more than 5 damage from a mutation, you had a 20% chance of dropping an item. It was ridiculous, honestly. Like, I understand why it was nerfed, but nerfed to this degree is very weird. Like, they should have just made it a 10% chance. But I guess what they're trying to say is if you take more than 50 damage, you have the same chance as before. And if you take more than 50 damage... Oh no, this probably is just those breakpoints then. It's probably not smoothed out at all. And if you ever go over 50 damage, it's a 33% chance. Having to take 50 damage to get the same output as before is a huge nerf. Pretty much, if you're going to look to abuse Hang's passive, you better have some damn good temporary health generation, because otherwise 10%'s fine. Like, that's probably more balanced, but then they try and like consolidate and give you like a double chance and like a plus 50% chance for taking a certain amount of damage. I don't know, maybe this is a gradient, and then as soon as you get over 50, it's 33. This is very weird, but I'm pretty much just going to say from now on that it's a 10% chance to drop items. Because it doesn't work with Charisse plates. It doesn't work if somebody bodyguards you. This is pretty much... Why would you subject yourself to 50 damage just to maybe drop an item that might be useful? Like, this is so heavy-handed. Holly's been refactored. They put a note here that they thought that she was pretty much pigeonholed into melee. They wanted her to be more versatile. I've always agreed that she is versatile. People just, I guess, don't really agree with me, which often happens. Again, I know how the game works, not how it plays. But old stamina gain ability has been added back to Adrenaline Field, and now her ability has been changed to Restore 1 health. Very key point on Restore, because Restore is not scaled by healing efficiency, and that means that it works during pure chaos, but it also can't overheal. Another key thing to note that I'm going to have to look into probably, because I would probably put here if they fixed it, Holly's talent can only go off like once a frame. So if you use a machete, kill like 10 commons, just cleave through all of them. Previously, you only got 10 stamina. Same thing with pipe bombs. You throw a pipe bomb goes off, kills 30 commons, right? 10 stamina. Doesn't matter. Can only go off once per frame. But it means that Molotovs could tick them up. And now that she's gaining health on kill, even if it still works the old way, Molly Holly's a thing now. I'm calling it. Like, Molly Holly's probably going to be one of the tankiest builds in the game. I'm pretty sure they also did some other reworking on her. I'll have to see if that's further down. I don't know why they wouldn't put that here. Added warp-ridden VO callouts for all cleaners. Always good for voice work, especially in this case, because it was a little weird to have these new enemies in the game and everyone's just calling them like exploders when they're shredders and stuff. The starter deck, since we are now at 15 cards, starts with 3 health, 3 ammo, 2 stamina, and 2 fortune. This honestly isn't very bad. Like, a lot of people talk shit about the starter deck, and, you know, like, even Intel probably. Pulling Intel at the end of the game was actually quite good. Whether or not this is... Like, obviously this isn't the best. I'm not trying to say that. But you're at least getting another 15 health. They're getting a ton of ammo, 3% damage, some good stamina recovery, and you're getting 100 copper per level. That is a shop heal. Intel in chapters has been adjusted to the following. This is going to be a little bit weird because of the fact that they can never really determine what the hell Intel means. When I refer to Intel, I mean like the manila folders that give you just stats, right? This health, ammo, stamina, fortune. The devs will constantly call what I call lockboxes with the actual cards that you buy. They'll call them card shrines. They'll call it Intel. Like, we have random Intel and basic Intel here, and that's weird. But anyways, all difficulties now have 3 random Intel per chapter. I'm guessing that that is still Intel. Previously 1. Non-no hope difficulties now have 1 basic Intel per chapter, previously 0.4. So there was a... You would maybe see it. Maybe this is. I'm gonna have to get a confirmation and look into this, but basically what they're doing is they're trying to obviously incel is our main way of scaling, so they're trying to adjust accordingly to make sure that we have not too much or enough stats to actually feasibly be able to beat the game. Adrenaline Field now gives 5 stamina on kill in addition to its previous effect. Now I'm hoping, since Adrenaline Field works better than Holly's talent, that this means that it will activate multiple times on kill. If that's the case, this is a buff, like 100%. Because if you're using a slicing weapon, you're going to get much more. If you're using even an axe, has some horizontal, you might be able to get multiple people. And this is in addition to its previous effects, so then you're going to get regen over time. Basically, their mentality was nobody respected off Holly melee, so what they did was they took Holly, put it into Adrenaline Field. If you feel like that was mandatory, you go into Adrenaline Field and you have half of that effect. But again, if you're going to proc multiple times in one frame, it's actually a buff. And then they gave Holly the 1 health recovery on kill, which is absolutely insane. So I think a lot of people are. This change was proposed in the Discord a while back, and a lot of people were quite negative on it, especially with the whole game switching over to 15 card. Melee needed something done with it, and I think that changing Holly was more or less mandatory for that. Holly's now probably one of the most survivable characters in the game. It's quite ridiculous. And like I said, if Adrenaline Field can pop off multiple times in a frame, you still got Holly gameplay. You just can have it on anybody now. But I never used Adrenaline Fuel on Melee Doc. You can get by just fine, especially again with getting all 15 of your cards. Just throw a couple of stamina cards in there, use Razorwire. You don't need Adrenaline Field. You don't need Holly. That's my opinion, and I'm dead serious about that. If my melee builds can get through Nightmare Pubs, then in a dedicated team, it should be just fine. Ammo for all has been buffed up to 2.5, which is ridiculous. But it kind of makes sense because it was basically just an ammo intel for the whole team. I think that it needs a little bit more because I don't know if 2.5 is enough to get people to actually take it, but I don't know. I'd buy it out of a lockbox. Bots have it. So, actually, yeah, bots have it. So you get 3 copies of this on solo. That's quite a lot, actually. Keep in mind, this is multiplicative with all other sources. Holy moly. God damn. Anyways, Batter Up renamed to Soften Up. Thank you for telling me that the card that's been renamed to Soften Up is now named Soften Up. No longer gives health or melee damage. That's honestly, I actually liked that it gave health, but I guess we have so much health now with more intel cards, and buying team health has never been easier. Regardless, melee hits now permanently reduce target's outgoing damage by 3% up to 15%. This is disgusting. And what the frick? It says per stack? Never gave per stack. Was this... Is this supposed to be somewhere else? Oh man, I'm gonna have to... I think they scuffed their batch notes. Batter Up didn't have stacks. That doesn't make any sense. This is probably supposed to go on Berserker. We'll get to that. And no longer can hit multiple ridden with a single swing. That's probably also on Berserker. I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. But I think they scuffed this up. Regardless, just looking at this, we're going to assume that this is actually on here for the purposes of talking about it. You can only hit one person, but it's reducing damage. Only hitting one person is fine because if you're trying to reduce damage, you're not killing commons. You're either aggro tanking a boss or you're using your life bar to protect your team from specials. So being able to reduce their damage is ridiculous, and it's a permanent reduction. Also note, oh my goodness, this probably still works with Bash. Oh my god! This probably still works with Bash. Oh, so in Nightmare Pubs, when my teammates don't give me ammo and I have to like box a breaker, it means that I get to reduce its damage by 15%. But as I was trying to say, damage reduction is enemy outgoing damage reduction is like damage resistance for your entire team. And there's a lot of implications involved. Like, for instance, if you reduce damage with Walker Ping on, I gotta check to see if that's additive, by the way, or multiplicative. If it's additive with Walker Ping, this is absolutely disgusting. Sorry. Reducing the outgoing damage on a breaker will reduce the outgoing damage of the breaker swarm, which was somewhat important because before that's how you would farm items with hang. So if we can do that in combination with this, regardless of what they do with breakers, we can probably still farm items with hang, which is crazy. But another thing is that this is another source of again damage reduction, right? So consider that the lowest damage reduction card is, oh, let's see, 5%. Yeah, it's 5%. Holly is now 5% team damage reduction. If they did that, again, I'm getting ahead of myself. That should be down below. Just 2 hits with a melee weapon, which if you're relatively fast will happen. And you now have a free damage reduction card that can go up to 15%. That's Motor Helmet. So even if you've got like a little bit of movement speed, you're using Marathon Runner and you're actually like correctly attack baiting enemies and bosses, like permanent 15% damage reduction is huge for your team, let alone you. Because, like I said, it's Motor Helmet for free. It took a card, but whatever. You find this in a lockbox. Like I said, this works with Bash. Battle Lust now heals 0.1 trauma per kill. Oh, and health from melee kills was decreased from 2 to 1. They had 2 bullets, and I read that, and I was like, that's it? That's zero point 0.1 trauma per kill. It's something. The one thing that I'm interested in, and we've never had trauma scalable by healing efficiency, but Battle Lust's effect is scalable by healing efficiency. So I wonder if that can also scale. Now you're you're probably not gonna have enough like healing efficiency to make that worth it. Like, okay, you like loaded it up and now you have zero point 0.3. Woo. But when you factor in that melee's very good at producing temporary health, and temporary health is now doesn't full block trauma. So if you're taking less trauma because you have temporary health, even if it's just a little bit, and then you get that temporary health back for the horde, this is going to help sustain you quite a bit. Berserker bonus sprint speed removed. Okay. Stacks now decay based on when they were gained. That's great. Funny that they mentioned it here. We had the devs pretty much publicly admit that it was bugged before, but now it's being stated as a card change. But if it is fixed, which if you didn't know before, what would happen is as soon as you lost 1 stack of Berserker, you lost all stacks of Berserker. So it wasn't kills in the last 4 seconds. It was as soon as you get your first kill in the next 4 seconds, you gain stacks and then you lose all of it. It was very weird. But allegedly it works now. And they reduced the buff duration, which makes sense. Like, honestly, if it was working, I'm going to say as intended. If it was working as intended, that's just ridiculous. It's still very good, right? And this is why I'm saying, like, melee damage and speed bonus per stack from 10%. That's what Berserker does, so I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be down in Berserker. And again, maybe it will cannot hit multiple ridden in a single swing. They don't want you to gain stacks very fast, but I'm guessing that again is with batter up. The melee damage and speed is with Berserker. And again, yes, if it's working as intended, for those 4 seconds you're a god, but then you run out of stacks and you have no stamina, and so you can't gain stacks. Pretty much you only used Berserker if you were Holly, because then you could actually get your stamina. Brazen removed the damage resistance, which is absolutely ludicrous, but they reduced the stacks. I don't know if this is necessarily to reduce the stamina efficiency, because people took Brazen. It's not like nobody didn't take it. Stamina efficiency wasn't a stat with diminishing returns. Attack speed technically is, but if you wanted the attack speed, that's why you were taking Brazen. It's very interesting that they chose to nerf it like this, but it's not nerfed by that much, because this doesn't really make it compete with Berserker except for the stamina efficiency. I don't know, maybe they thought stamina efficiency was breakouts. What the fuck is this? Oh, I'm sorry. This means slippery when wet is good. They just need to make this scale with use speed. That's all they need to do. They're gonna keep like buffing this thing until it. I would buy it. I would buy Breakout, but just make it scale with use speed. That would have done the same thing if you would just have made it scale with use speed. Because 50% would reduce it by 1/3, and then it would be like 2 seconds. And if somebody wants to do some sort of like headband shenanigans and reduce it down to like 1.5 seconds, then by all means. Combat knife, attack speed increased. That's crazy. Wait, is that maybe that is a nerf? Is that attack time or attack speed? Well, let's take a look. Real science here, folks. And real science is just going on to statty.net, even though it's out of date. So we do fire 2 per second, approximately, a little bit more. So, sorry, I was looking at Bash. So it is 2 per second. So it has 0.5 attack time. They nerfed combat knife. That's good, actually. But nerfing it by 50%? We got free attack speed up here. I'll have to look into that. Still costs a card, though. Face Your Fears has been nerfed by 50%, which is weird. Charge no longer launches players forward on heavy attack. That was actually good about it, but okay. Like, if a lot of people were complaining about that, might as well make it usable for more players, I suppose. Face Your Fears down to 1, sorry, is obviously a 50% nerf, but I think that, well, there's a lot of melee stuff changing. We'll have to see where it goes. But with all this change, the Battle Lust giving trauma per kill makes more sense. Heavy Hitter, card refactors, now staggers enemies the first time they were hit with melee and only triggers 1 time per enemy. This is the exact same effect that is on, how do I say, it's on Staring Contest, the legendary scope, and it is absolutely busted. You go Staring Contest into an armor break, and a special doesn't get to do anything, and everybody else just gets to mow it down. Now Heavy Hitter gets 1 stump stagger. Also note that enemies are very weird with stumble sometimes, especially if they're in the middle of an animation. If a tall boy is currently doing the burst attack, right? They're charging forward. They will not get stumbled until after they are done, and sometimes they still get to swing. So you still need to bait the slam. But as soon as that's done, you go into melee and you just like bop them, and they're going to be staggered some more. So this is really going to help out people who are trying to special kill with melee, which may take a hit overall, but heavy attack no longer launches the player forward. It seems like they are trying to actually differentiate from like a horde sustainer and a special killer. And again, Staring Contest on melee is absolutely busted for that reason. If you're able to get in melee range and just stumble an enemy, generally a stumble time takes about, it's not quite a second, depends on the enemy, but it's about a second. You can get your melee speed up pretty fast, and so you're hitting 3 times every single special that you come up against. I I don't know if people are talking shit, but people are probably sleeping on heavy hitter and melee in general. Like it's so disgusting. And even if you don't like have the ability to kill it, right? You add soften up, you'll get those 5 attacks in with a faster weapon. So then you're sitting there doing damage. It just got staggered. You got and your team is firing into it probably. If they focus fire, they can stumble it again. Might need some more help in like the higher difficulties, like no hope. But this is ridiculous. And again, it doesn't specify melee weapon. This works with bash. Remember what I was saying about we even forgot what it was called. Power Strike? Remember what I was saying about Power Strike? You get one free guaranteed stumble with your bash, no matter the difficulty. I was talking about before they nerfed stumble or buffed enemy stumble. I was serious about punching exploders, and now you might actually be able to get away with that too. Highwayman was buffed to 5%. Highwayman was the Molotovs. Oh, Mugger was buffed too. I see it down there. Oh, Power Strike adds stumble. What the frick? Oh, I'll get down there. These being buffed up to 5% honestly doesn't mean that much. I mean, it's actually quite significant because, for those of you who don't know, it rolls for every single type of ammo. So when you're looking at 5%, it's actually more than 20% when you factor in all 4 of them. Actually, I believe it was Highwayman cannot drop shotgun. I believe it's out of its spawn pool. I believe our data miner looked at that. Yeah, I believe so. Anyways, Highwayman and Hoffman, I've not been able to have anybody confirm that they can both go off at the same time. So it's not that big of a deal. It basically allows other people to try to be Hoffman. But they get more ammo chance, which they already did anyways because he was at like a 1%, I believe, or 1.5%. And the 5% chance for Molotovs is pretty good. This is probably additive with Hoffman actually. But the point I was trying to make is that nobody has ever dropped 2 ammo piles on footage off of a single enemy with Highwayman and Hoffman. Hired gun no longer affects teammates, but you can get more money out of it. That is whatever. It means that you need to burn 4 of these in order to like super juice your economy. And you have to actually like invest inside the map. Again, this is a burn card. I really don't care, but this is a very serious nerf. But hopefully now when I talk about economy, people won't just say, like just burn hired gun 5 head, but they probably still will. Mean drunk, damage reduction, no longer disables sprint. Okay, like so this is the new batter up, and batter up is now a damage reduction card. Medical professional, trauma is now healable with medical accessories while at full health. Technically, like this is just a usability thing. So if you're at full health, you can't use medkits on people. So if you're in the safe room, you can no longer take damage. You can't even damage yourself anymore. You used to not be able to damage others, but they changed it last patch to where as long as the door is not open, you can't take any damage whatsoever. So then that made it so that if you had full health, your medic couldn't really heal you there. You'd have to open the door, start the level, and then you got the timer, and then you would be able to flu shot him and give them that trauma heal with medical professional. So the fact that it enables being able to heal people while they're at full health is very good, but it's also good for in combination with field surgeon, in combination with medical experts and overheal, because otherwise you weren't really able to do anything with those either. Not necessarily that this gives like huge value to those, but if you're thinking about it in that sense, also keep in mind charitable soul, stuff like that over here. Methhead card refactored, flat bonuses removed, now gives 5% melee speed and 5% stamina efficiency per melee swing up to 10 times. Now, note that this says per melee swing. It doesn't say melee hit. Last 4 seconds and stack to 10. This is kind of ridiculous because, I don't know, It seems to me that they've been scared to add a lot of melee stamina efficiency to the point that they just nerfed Brazen. But the idea here is that if you are using melee, melee is cheaper. And so you start looking into things like the new adrenaline field. I think the adrenaline field Methhead, I think that's pretty much a staple for most people because Methhead gave stamina efficiency anyways and good attack speed. I wonder if flat bonuses removed means that it also removed the cannot ADS, because that'd be interesting as well. But if you wanted that hold the door gameplay, you're already using Methhead. So you basically just have to earn it, right? You got to ramp yourself up. But since it is melee swings, you could even like pregame for a boss if you have enough stamina. And with the intel, again, intel, team upgrades, all that stuff, 15 cards, you're going to have a lot of stamina. Even before like 15 card in the new upgrades, when I was playing Melee Duck, I would have too much stamina by the end, simply because of accidentally picking up stamina intel. So you can use that stamina that you're really not using anyways to just sort of like rev up. And then this can also be your bossing alternative too, because of the guaranteed stumble on first hit. Just something to look into, I guess. Again, I know how the game works, not how it plays, right? Maybe that's not the use case for this at all. Mugger, same exact thing. 5% chance at Razorwire is absolutely ridiculous. Like I said before, if you want to play melee and you don't want to use Adrenaline Field, just use Razorwire. 5 head. It's very good. Power Strike added stumble when hitting armor. So, my guess is the thing is that Power Strike didn't have a stumble multiplier anyways, which was part of its problem, was that it wasn't multiplying the damage that it added, wasn't gaining the stumble multiplier of bash. So does this just stumble when you hit armor instead to sort of mitigate the fact that you're not hitting? We'll have to look into that. Pure Chaos card now reduces temp health and temp health and temp health heals by 50%, previously 75%. I honestly, again, as a knight, I'm going to be saying it a lot, I feel, but I feel like it's to get my point across. As a nightmare pub doc main, Pure Chaos was not a problem. The problem is that it did not do what the card said it did. And our data miner found out that, yes, it was multiplying everything by 0.25. People were saying that this was double dipping and stuff on Reddit. I've gotten no proof on that. But now it's 50%. The thing about Pure Chaos is that it adds 8 grenades and 10 Molotovs onto the map and an extra FAC, if you didn't know that. Unless they fix that down below. Sorry if they did. But yes, Pure Chaos was ridiculous, but they at least gave you tools to work around it. In my opinion, Biohazard was much worse than this, but that's just me. But it's been buffed. A lot of people had a pain point with this, so okay. Like, it was certainly not deadlier than Avarice, Cost of Avarice, the one for the copper, in my opinion at least. It gave you a benefit, but also had a downside with it that you really needed to work around. What does Biohazard do? It gives you 3 THP that's going to be gone in like 1 second. And you take 25% more damage, which means that you're going to take more trauma as well. Thanks. Cost of Avarice also adds an FAC, by the way. So, Biohazard literally just screws you. And no one talks about it. 25% more damage taken? That's a no hope monstrous bruiser hit for over 200 damage. Yeesh. Oh, but you might have like 3 to 6 temporary health though. So, yay. Rousing speech was reworked. As you guys, if you guys have seen my medical card tier list from way back, I believe it was like December. I sang a lot of praise about rousing speech, and then life insurance got reworked to also give team incap reduction, team incap trauma reduction. And I was like, well, it's still good because that card's bugged and it doesn't actually apply to the team. And then they fixed it so that it applied to the team. And then I was like, well, rousing's piece of shit now because it's not worth your grenade. But now it's a team effect that gives 50% team revive speed, and then 10% trauma and cap trauma reduction, and then 10 team heal on revive. So basically, this is like a team-wide combat medic. This is combat medic for your team with a little bit of life insurance sprinkled in there. The difference between life insurance being 15% and this being 10% is honestly negligible. It's like half a trauma on no hope. But getting the team revive speed and the 10 team heal is very good if you're playing with either a no medic setup, because two people have this and you basically have like mom effect on the team plus 20 flat health recovery after revive. That 20 flat, or the 10 flat here, or 20 flat on what is it on combat medic, that's significant due to how revives work, especially when you start looking into things like pure chaos. It's been nerfed, but it'll still reduce your in-cap heal. It will not reduce this unless it actually is a heal, but I'm guessing that this works like combat medic. I'll have to look into that. People sleep on combat medic a lot because of the fact that it's like plus 20 health. Plus 20 health is like 25% healing efficiency in like the mid game. We're starting with 15 cards now, so who knows what it's actually going to be. But if you start with 100 health, this is basically 20% healing efficiency on a character that has 100 health on revive. And you're giving that to your whole team. This, in combination with medical expert, you're going to heal a lot of health. This also hits defibs, run like hell. Card was reworked to have a buff while active instead of a debuff when disabled. This is a huge buff. Absolutely huge. Oh man. Chances are this is multiplicative now. Whereas before, the reduction was multiplicative, which meant that you needed more speed. So I said earlier that I'm not the movement speed guy, but let me just run this by you. If you have any increase, let's say that run like hell, I admittedly don't know what the numbers are, but we're going to say 15%, right? You got 15% movement. And then what it does is when you get hit, it removes it. Well, that 15% movement speed on the card the way it is additive. And when you reduce a less by the same amount, you end up with slightly less than 100%. And that hits all of your increase movement speed. So getting hit with run like hell was actually like a huge it's a huge nerf. It's much more than it says it is on the card. Since it's a buff while active now, that is a different source of movement speed. So chances are it's multiplicative. And even if it's not, the fact that the debuff isn't is a buff. Even if it's like 3% on your build, right? People who are crazy about movement speed are crazy about 3% movement speed. So Spiky Bits now adds 20 flat damage instead of plus 20% damage. That's insane. Let's go back to our little stat site here. Just take a look at the Machete. At purple, it does 40. Can I stop talking now? Now, chances are, the way that they usually do their formulas, right? Whenever something is plus something, it's after the order of operations, damage formula, whatever the heck is going on, right? Damage reduction, scar tissue, or pep talk, after damage reduction. This is probably after you put in your melee damage, your glass cannon, whatever you're putting in here. It's probably an additional 20%, which is not as good as, say, increasing this damage by 20%. But early, again, this is 15 card Back for Blood, right? You're starting with a white machete. That's pretty much, again, it's not double your damage, but it's pretty fucking close. And you only get up to 40. It's been confirmed on my Discord. This works with your bash, so it's a better power strike because it's on all the time. And again, probably stumble multiplier doesn't go into it because it's after the fact. Bats, um, basically, if you are just holding melee for horde clear, which happens, right? I don't know, some absolute degenerates picking melee doc, right? If you're solving horde with just a melee weapon, and that melee weapon is, say, the machete or even the bat, 20 damage at the start of the game will meet your breakpoints on commons. It's done. Now, the one problem about plus 20 damage is that it won't get multiplied by weak spot multiplier. If that's the case, again, we gotta lab it, you would not take it in your standard just like actually trying to kill specials build because ignore pain would be better because that's just 20% more damage versus mutations. Sunder? Oh no, not Sunder! Oh no, Sunder! What the frick? Now causes melee hit. So it's Sunder is the opposite of new batter up now, and it can stack. Now, obviously, this is well, it's a burf, right? That's gonna sound weird coming out on tape, but this used to be 20% for one hit, but it was also the way that the game handles stacks. It was weird. So this was probably for the best because you're going to have more uptime. And it also doesn't state how long it takes. So it's probably also permanent. Probably going to have to get a... No, we wouldn't have the dev confirm that. We'd be able to lab that. Just hit something 5 times and then see if it still takes full damage. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling. And then melee hits that destroy armor create an armor kit. So basically, like obviously you got a stacking damage increase buff. This is for bossing and specials. And then if you destroy armor, you get a chance to create an armor kit, which is also good versus armored commons, but also obviously good versus specials with armor too. And it makes you sort of like a pseudo Charisse. But then you have to get the armor hit. So that's a little wonky. This is a little weird, but it's welcome, I guess. The other thing that a lot of people, I've had it go both ways, right? People talking shit about how Charisse doesn't do anything, but then also those people wish that they could get armor elsewhere, which means that Charisse is doing stuff. I don't know. Anyways, this sort of like alleviates that pressure off of like having to take Charisse for armor. But this is only going to be more useful like later in the game when they start like stacking armor on almost every special. Team health upgrade has been reduced to 7 health. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how that got out. It's just so good. The one thing is though is that this does make it very comparable to the Intel pulls. But I suppose we can't pull Intel at the end of the deck, so that's guess we were just too chunky. This also hits bolstered health too. Trigger control refactored. Precision kills now grants a stacking 0.5% accuracy until the end of the level. Interesting. Like this shouts horde clear for me, but if you were horde clearing already, you probably already had a weapon with good accuracy. LMGs would like this, and I suppose shotguns get a lot of accidental precision kills. So yeah, I could see it for that too. The ump actually would really love this. Depends on exactly how many. Like obviously you know how many stacks that you would need in order for it to actually feel good, because that's according to you. But yeah, those heavyweight weapons that don't have precise accuracy when you're ADS, this will help alleviate that. And then it also helps your hip fire too, which is usually what you would get from midweight weapons like the M4, the Vector, the M1A, and all of those basically this makes heavyweight weapons, midweight weapons, and midweight weapons are like super midweight weapons. You're gonna have a literal laser, basically. Vanguard now heals 1 health instead of 1 temp health. It says heal, not recover, and oh, there it is. Heals with skills with healing efficiency, less range. 25 meters was ridiculous, so 10 meters seems a little bit more safe. It's literally like people around you. This also means that if you're using Vanguard and you're getting hit, Sadis is available for the team. Whereas before, you could be out of range. I personally don't like this because this encroaches on, obviously, medics, group therapy, and the like. And the fact that it's skills with healing efficiency kind of makes that like, I guess what I actually just need to do is just accept that melee might be the best medic and just always do melee doc. Sorry, guys. TRS made me do it. Corruption cards, volatile ridden, no longer have explosive damage fall off. Good, I'll be able to actually lab how much damage they do then. Balance updates, reduce hive spawn chance. Pretty much cut them technically down to 60%, but almost half. Yeesh. Rescaled the catch-up mechanics for all difficulties to match no hope. Okay. Recruit, reduce map transition, heal trauma to 15. So, checking what I recently labbed, they didn't say anything about HP recovery. In the patch that they changed everything suddenly made it so that no matter what difficulty you're on, even recruit, you don't heal any health after a stage, and they're not mentioning that at all, so I'm going to assume that that is still broken until I find out otherwise. But they are nerfing the trauma heal 1 difficulty, right? Recruit now only recovers 15 trauma, and veteran recovers 0, which makes sense because of the fact that recruit, at least, didn't really take trauma because you have like innate trauma resist and ammo capacity being 60% was ridiculous because you had the bonus damage and you didn't need all that ammo. So I guess like that kind of makes sense. And the big thing about this patch, at least as far as me, is that they have designated how much copper is in every map. It's no longer a sort of like something that happens and then you might get good RNG, might get bad RNG. They have nerfed the amount of piles in every difficulty, but we now have a guaranteed amount of income, right? So you have a certain amount of small, certain amount of medium, certain amount of larges. And what that means is that they can more accurately judge how much money you're expected to have at a certain point in the game. Of course, Copper Scav adds 2 medium piles, and you have other such ways of increasing how much you're gaining. You've got Cost of Avarice adding more piles, and there is still some variability. Like even right here, it seems like 4 piles are random in every difficulty. Yep. So it can fluctuate a bit, but for the most part, they know, and as an alternative, we know approximately how much copper you're supposed to have at a certain point in the campaign. So you can use that for planning as well. Veteran lost some of its outgoing damage boost. That's good because it was kind of laughable. The trauma recovery being lost is good, and extra ammo capacity being dropped is good. This extra trauma damage increase, that wasn't a thing. Oh no. Okay. Oh. Well, we're probably going to take more trauma damage than Nightmare. Anyways. Extra ammo capacity reduced. Basically, they got rid of most of the bonus stats and made Sleepers call Hordes once again, so Veteran is feeling pretty good as far as just looking at this, because before it was a little bit laughable with all these other choices. And again, we're going to make significantly less money with 10 of these being, and significantly less money in Nightmare as well. So again, going to have to plan around that. outgoing damage to 10%. I would really like this to be 0 because it's kind of, it'd be nice to have a difficulty where I can actually like lab damage. And now I just gotta like remember that this is 10% now instead of 20%. Because Nightmare is good for some things, but now we take extra trauma damage, so now I've got to have like saves for Nightmare just to lab damage. Gotta have saves for Veteran for other things. Just ridiculous. Anyways. And then of course increase all trauma by 10. Um See, and this is exactly what I'm talking about right here. Extra trauma damage increased from 20% from 10%, but then we increased all trauma damage by 10%. These are two different statements, and they might actually be two separate. I'm gonna have to lab this shit again, aren't I? Good lord. Ferocious combat damage increased by 12.5%. Oh, okay, yeah. So this might be all damage because this is the stats that No Hope had, or No Hope had, but they were supposed to have more dangerous stats, but they didn't because it was still scaling off of Nightmare. So if they fix the No Hope stats, and then this is now what's happening in Nightmare, then that means that Nightmare is old No Hope without the mechanical difficulty, which is interesting. No Hope reduced the amount of copper that you gain per cleaner. Again, just them deciding what everything's going to be, just like how they're limiting the piles here. They said that only small piles can spawn in No Hope, but people have reported getting larger piles without copper scaff and outside of prepper stashes. So I don't know if that's actually true. Anyways, we'll have to check that again. 870 changes. Good shit. This is my favorite shotgun. Basically, they gave it more range, which means that it has more damage. Then they gave it 10% more damage. And since the first pellet always does like bonus damage, it's about like ×2. Steady have this? Pellet. No, not technically. Anyways, the first pellet does a little bit more damage than everything else. And so that's probably theoretically also going to be changed, but when they buffed the 870 last time, this didn't actually happen. So, oh man. Without steady, someone's going to have to figure that shit out. Anyways, Attack 14 changes, less range, which means less damage, and the stumble multiplier per weapon quality was reduced as well. This is very interesting, honestly. So they basically swapped the ranges between the 870 and the Attack 14. It's really, it honestly, I say, but it's interesting. Because the whole idea of like midweight weapons like the 870 is that they're supposed to have short range, right? They're supposed to have short range, they're supposed to have less damage. But now if we're taking the TAC 14 and just dropping it to here, then likewise, they showed the scaling, but it's probably everything just gets pulled back a little bit. Huh. I'll have to see how that feels, but I'm an 870 respecter, so this is good news for me. Attack 14 is going to be less of a stumble king, but 1% per quality, it's not going to make a difference. The range is going to make more difference than the stumble loss here. Same thing with the Belgian. I guess they're just trying to. No one's using 870, so they're trying to buff the TAC 14 in the Belgian. But what did they do to Super 90? Absolutely nothing, which is weird because pretty much nobody uses that thing except for me when I have to. M1A changes, got more damage. What the fuck? M1A is good. And base damage was increased by like 20%. Holy crap. It was all. Okay. Going back and forth between this a lot. And I believe there might have been an update here that changed these values a bit, so take them with a grain of salt. But Just take a look at the DPS on the M1A. Sustained DPS is 100, 95, 100, right? Those are technically the same. But you look at the amount, how fast you're dropping that damage, right? Damage per mag is 577, and you can drop that in like 2 seconds. You you would have to be able to fire this Phoenix like 3 times a second. Or like, it wouldn't be 3 times a second. You would have to really crank this sucker out to match the DPS of an M1A. Someone tried to argue with me on Reddit that a Barrett 50 cal with 100% reload speed would out DPS an M1A. It does not. It absolutely does not. The M1A is serious damage. And then, of course, they released the Witness recently, which was the M1A with a clip, and it absolutely murders everything. It also does more damage. So that might be why they buffed the damage of the M1A, is to make it so that the Witness wasn't so much better. I could understand that, but this thing's already a powerhouse, and that's ridiculous. It's actually quite interesting. Like I said, a lot of the people on the Discord are actually better at the game than I am. They play No Hope. And they said that No Hope actually made them respect the M1A more than the Barrett 50 cal because you can't one-shot things, and so DPS is more important, which is kind of crazy that you would go for less burst damage or less upfront damage because of the fact that enemies have more health. I don't know. I'm not really a game theory guy, but that's always been interesting to me. But people are starting to use the M1A more after its last buff, which was the recoil reduction. It's very good. You just need a little bit of recoil control with it. Now that you start with 15 cards, just throw shooter gloves or, I don't know, line them up in there. It'll feel pretty good. Otherwise, at green, since it's a midweight weapon, it increases accuracy and recoil per. I can actually show this. It'll increase accuracy and recoil with rarity, and it's that significant. Like, it doesn't look like a lot of vertical, but the horizontal, all you have to do is be able to walk your mouse down or your trigger or whatever you're aiming with just a little bit. This thing will chunk. You put a compensator on this thing, like basically each of these rarities is a compensator. You get it down to blue and you got that. So that's green with a reduction card. It's ridiculous. Magnum. I heard about this one. Oh my good lord. So basically, they added more range to the Magnum. And again, this is the same thing as the 870, where heavyweight weapons were supposed to have longer range and more damage. But with the 870 and the Magnum, they seem to be like flipping that around. It's interesting, we'll say. Rate of fire has been reduced by almost half. And then the hip fire recoil reduced by almost half. And then ADS fire recoil reduced by about 30%. This is so. If you're playing Jim, you might just put like shooting gloves in your deck because now the M1A and the Magnum, being able to spawn with these things, a little bit of recoil reduction on this Magnum, it's going to feel good. Let me tell you. Like, the one problem with the Magnum is that it was trying to be the Deagle's like younger brother, but nobody cares about a little Deagle, even if it uses rifle ammo. I've had to use this thing quite a bit because, it's the best gun that's around. It's not bad. It's just it's just one of the worst guns in the game. Did they really not do anything with the burst Beretta? Interesting. M1911, pretty much not necessarily the same thing, but they upped its damage a little bit, trying to make it compete with the Glock and the M9 Beretta. Being able to fire it from the hip a little bit better, like this isn't really going to make that big of a difference. The damage increase is probably going to be the biggest thing. The hip recoil. maybe. Like it's a, is it a heavyweight weapon? Go back here a lot. It's recoil and yep, it's a midweight weapon actually. So I suppose being able to fire it from the hip makes sense. But the Beretta just does that so much better. But again, 17 is quite significant, and that'll help it out a lot. Better recoil, minimum spread, and the recoil will help quite a bit. It might make it more usable, but it seems like these usability stats are moving so little, like 10% each. Like I'll try it. I'll pick it up. I picked up M1911s again. If I'll pick up and use the only gun I will not pick up is a Beretta Burst. Every time I tell myself that this time's going to be different, it burns me. So these guns being slightly easier, well, Magnum being significantly easier, but the M1911 being slightly easier to use, I'm about it. Developer note, the Fire Axe was too dominant and we wanted to enable other fast attack weapons, so we altered melee cards and base stats to make them more viable. What? Fire Axe wasn't dominant. Combat Knife was dominant. What the hell? Does less stumble, less damage? What the heck? And its stamina cost is now 25? Not that big of an increase, but Jesus Christ. Why? Fire Axe was not Combat Knife. That's why it was used. Otherwise, Machete can't compete with Combat Knife. The Bat couldn't compete with Combat Knife. It still couldn't stumble. And the Hatchet was honestly debatably better than the Fire Axe. It's so weird. Anyways, we'll see how it works. I think Fire Axe can lose a little bit of damage, and I don't know about you guys, but I didn't care about it stumbling. The stamina cost is going to be the biggest deal there. Machete, more damage. Honestly, pretty good. And the stamina cost is now 6. What? So it's absolutely free with Adrenaline Field? Interesting choice, but I suppose Adrenaline Field is supposed to be against hordes, and Machete's good against hordes. Bats got a little bit more stumble and some damage. That honestly might help it, honestly. Especially with Fire Axe being changed to absolutely not be able to do that. What? Hatchet got a crit? A crit multi? That's crazy. Yeah, you would want to reduce the stumble ratio if it's going to be able to get more crit damage. And it costs a little bit more. Hatchet's crazy. Like, Hatchet legitimately was debatable with Fire Axe unless you only cared about the one shot, one kill. Now it's got weak spot multiplier. And if this is exactly like the Beretta, M9 Beretta, and the ranch rifle, this is multiplicative with weak spot damage. That's going to be insane. And it's easier to use. It's got a faster attack time. They pretty much just killed the Fire Axe. They could have left the Fire Axe as is, made these changes. That's nuts. And the tenderizer recovery time reduced. Nobody cares. I'm sorry. In Nightmare Pubs, whenever somebody picks up a tenderizer, I know who I'm going to have to use a defib on. That's my opinion of the tenderizer. I've never seen anybody use it well. New rare rotator named weapons were added to Ridden Hives. What? We noticed that players were gaining too much power from diving into early hives, but we didn't want to remove what made going into hives unique. Added a new set of rare named weapons to help smooth out player progression. Seriously? That's crazy. Legendary MP51. Weapon attachments drops rescaled so that players are less likely to get higher tier attachments early in runs. Okay. This makes Weaponsmith much less useful. And I already didn't respect that card, but some people do. So I expect that to probably drop a little bit. Because are you really going to take a card for the chance that you're going to be able to find a legendary attachment when they're significantly less. Just take it to the safe room and spend an extra 100 copper, in my opinion. Add a new tech to make liquid in bottles more realistic, specifically for Molotovs. Cool. Okay. Bot loadouts have now been adjusted based on what part of the act they are. Bot walker nerfed. Additional bot AI improvements made, including no longer continuously jumping after mantling. Oh my god, did they fix Bot Evangelo? Made minor adjustment to bot cards and extended the bot deck to 66 cards from 50. Wait, what the frick? 66 cards? Could they only get 50 cards with like intel and stuff? What the heck's going on? What does this mean? Minor adjustments to bot cards. That's going to have to be looked at. Anyways, bots now give all copper in their inventory to player cleaners at the start of every chapter, including after a team wipe. This is good. Everybody hated when they removed that. Adjusted strafing speed and sprint cost for bots so that they can better keep up with other cleaners. Wait, bots have stamina? It's so weird. They cheat in literally everything else. Max health percentage for bots to heal is increased to 85%. They really nerfed Ball Walker. Because what they're doing here is it used to be every 2 minutes they would use their medical items on you, or they could because they had infinite charges. So what you would do is once you had upgraded med kits, or if you bought medical professional on Walker, you would just jump on a car, jump off, take fall damage, and then he would see that you didn't have full health, and then he would heal you. If you had overheal available, they would heal you regardless because they don't follow the rules. And so you could just heal all your trauma over time with that. Every safe room. So they will now stop at a certain point to keep you from doing that. That is absolutely hilarious. Various improvements made to special ridden pathing and campaign missions and ridden hives. Good. Actually, common ridden pathing improvements made to campaign missions. I wonder if that means Diner has been changed. That would be very good. Swarm PvP updates. I don't mean to be rude to Swarm players, but I'm not the Swarm guy. I've been playing some Swarm. If you want to know about changes to Swarm, I would head over to Keith Ustis's channel, the guy who's been showing me how to play Swarm, stuff like that. I've been working with him on cracking a bunch of Swarm bugs, or confirming that bugs that are in campaign also occur in Swarm, or vice versa, because of the fact that, well, the in-cap card bug doesn't occur in Swarm, so who knows what's actually transferring over there, and it also gets the information out to the Swarm community. I'll probably link his channel up there, over there, down there. I don't know where the fuck they go, so you can click on it if you want. Guy knows his shit. Fixed an issue where the pickup action would play multiple times when the interact button was pressed in Ridden Hives. That was the entire game, Turtle Rock, but good if it's actually been fixed. Fixed a data issue causing the stumble modifier to be less and no hope. Well, okay. Sounds good. Fixed an issue where specialists did not inflict trauma damage when pinged by Walker. Well, sorry guys. That's my fault. Fixed an issue where the in-cap health decay rate was faster with Mom in the party. Not technically true. That's also my fault. Fixed an issue that caused Hoffman's ability to spawn too many items. Did they really? If they fixed that, that might be why they buffed Highwayman and Mugger, because they work the exact same way. Fixed an issue that allowed Hang's ability to activate from damage over time, except the game's not very good at determining damage over time. I'll have to look into that. That might have been a huge, like, the previous thing was already a huge Hang nerf. This would be an even larger Hang nerf. Otherwise, what damage over times are actually put on you? Like, technically pins? I'll have to look into that. Fixed an issue where neither player would take damage if one gets hit with down in front and the other has bodyguard active. Sorry, that's my fault. Fixed an issue where there was no shotgun ammo spawning when Ridden were killed with Mugger, Highwayman, or Hoffman. We've confirmed it with Mugger, but Mugger and Hoffman, but if they fixed everything, then sure. That also may have been this fix, if it's what I think it is. Because shotgun ammo was at the end of the priority list, so it essentially never happened. But shotgun ammo did spawn. I've got tons of recordings on it. But it was not on the loot pool for Highwind. Because I guess at one point the Belgian was not a secondary, but I'm getting ahead of myself there, I guess. Team upgrade cards no longer show up in the active cards list if that player who purchased them leaves the game. But they're still taking them, aren't they? Fixed an issue where this card granted trauma healing when the other player had maxed out trauma. That was the only time it was useful. It was the only time. And even then it wasn't good. Oh no, bravado. No. Cost of avarice. Spawned more copper than it should have. Oh no. Fixed an issue that caused this card to grant 40% stamina regen instead of 20%. That is true. I did confirm that, but that wasn't me who found it, so I'm not going to say that it's my fault. Deep wounds. Fixed an issue where this card's corruption visual elements persisted after a team wipe for players resuming a run. Okay, I thought they were going to fix THP blocking it, but I suppose that's intended at this point. Down in front, fixed an issue where armor plates absorb friendly fire while down in front is active. This is, well, I would say this is my fault, but I'm not going to say it's my fault when this is in the player's benefit. Face Your Fears fixed an issue where temp health was not affected by healing efficiency. Excuse me? And then they nerfed it? Weird. Melee Doc. Fit as a Fiddle fixed an issue where the critical health penalty was triggered too early. I believe what they mean here is that whenever you had bolstered health, it would affect your true max health. This was mentioned in my analysis of the mom bug. Basically, this is a nerf to Wounded Animal, which didn't get touched this patch, so yay. But this is technically good that it, if this wasn't intended for bolstered health to increase your true max health, then it's a good thing that they fixed this, especially after they fixed the mom and cat bug, because otherwise that would have been hellacious. Life Insurance fixed trauma scaling to resolve an issue with stacking. An issue? You mean it stacking additively? Issue being that it's... I must not know something, because I'm pretty sure I tested this and it was negative 60%, like it should have been. Unless it was supposed to be multiplicative. In which case, yikes. Your Chaos fixed an issue where this card did not replace all accessories with copper piles. You mean Cost of Avarice? What? This is why I say we can't trust these patch notes. That makes no sense. Save from Recovery fixed an issue where this card did not stack. If they didn't change the values, that's disgusting. I guess everyone takes Save from Recovery now. Nobody plays Medic anymore. Doc is now a melee character. That's actually fun. It's hilarious to say, but if we've got all these better ways of actually healing trauma, and healing efficiency applies to melee, and Holly no longer has stamina on kill, Doc might actually be the new melee character. They mention here Blue Dog Hollow made adjustments to common spawns to address unintended increased damage. There's a similar issue, a very serious issue on No Hope when you're playing Handyman. So, if you didn't know, each time that you pop a full nest, it adds more specials to the horde by just playing more cards in the background, right? You can't see it. But on No Hope, they are monstrous. Whereas usually if something off spawns, it is a normal special. So if the AI director decides to play, like, say, multiple Wretch cards, because you've popped multiple nests, that damage bonus from the times 2 damage bonus from monstrous is going to be multiplicative. And so wretches can, or anything really, so long as it's picked multiple times, scales to the moon. And they did not list that here. And that scares me. But that might technically be the same thing that's happening here, made adjustments to common spawns to address unintended increased damage. Hopefully that's the case. Maybe a similar thing was happening at Blue Dog Hollow, and it was just playing more common cards to spawn them in the mines. And that same stacking's occurring, but I just wanted to bring that up in case you run into that while playing No Hope. That's what's going on. And it means that they missed the bug. If they did that, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, and I'll annoy the devs about it. They also didn't state anything about the in-cap card bug. They have it here. Swarm PvP fixed an issue with this card would stack when dying after incapacitated. Swarm knew about that for a long time. If you pressed X to give up, you would set off all your Inspiring Sacrifice again, which is very potent, especially because since the in-cap card bug doesn't occur in Swarm, it just always happens. So that's going to be popping off and healing for quite a lot if all your team has it. I really hope that they did fix that, though, because that's very annoying that it occurs in campaign. Anyways, that's all these patch notes. Sorry if I rambled up a little bit too much. This may even come out the next day because I talked for 2 hours, which is hopefully going to be cut down quite a bit so that I'm sure that nobody wants to listen through all that. But anyways, I hope that you guys are out there enjoying the patch. I'll be heading out there throughout the week. Again, you might not see a lot of videos. I am out there labbing. You can drop by the Discord, ask questions. If I'm not able to answer them, tons of helpful people who are also willing to help out. You can even help out if you want to. I'll leave the Discord invite link down in the description below. Anyways, until next time, I'll catch you guys around.